everyone, Kate here to talk to you about Villainous Victorians. I wanted to do a video on my favorite villains in Victorian novels, and I will include timestamps for this one. Most of the villains are pretty obvious, and I won't go into specifics, but if you just want to go in totally blind to different Victorian novels, I understand that, because some of them you don't know that they're a villain until far into the story. And I hope that you enjoy this. So these are characters that you love to hate, or you just hate that they're in the story and they almost ruin the book for you. The first one, though, that I love to hate, and that is Long John Silver from Treasure Island. I love Treasure Island, and I think it's because I went in with such low expectations, but what a romantic kind of a story, you know, this big swashbuckling adventure. And the character of Long John Silver is just the icing on the cake with how not straightforward he is. You can't decide what you think about him. You can't completely make up your mind about him. And you just, you go back and forth. And I will stand by firmly, though. I think he does care about Jim. I think he does. I think he loves Jim. And if he, you know, didn't have his life on the line, he would hang out with Jim for a long time. I'm confident that he cares about Jim, and there are a couple things that he does that I think make it really clear, but he's a great character because he is so morally gray. And the next one I want to talk about that just gives me the creeps, and that is Uriah Heep from David Copperfield. And he always just, he keeps talking about how humble he is, and he is so simpering and sneering and snake-like and just creeps you out so much, and you hate that Agnes spends so much time around him, and just really, you just hate that she has to spend so much time around him and stuck in his clutches, and you are just, he's disgusting in every single scene he's in. I just can't really word better because he just creeps me out so much. So he's a great villain because he is slithering and slimy and he's not straightforward. And then another villain on this list, also in David Copperfield, is Edward. Is his first name Edward? I wrote it down. Yes, Edward Murdstone. So David's stepfather. And I think that one is just painful to me, crushing, because David has this really sweet little existence where it's he and his mom and Peggotty, and then Mr. Murdstone comes and ruins everything. And he is just so brutal to children. He doesn't think of children as precious and vulnerable, and he's just so incredibly cruel to this little boy. He's a child, and he takes advantage of that. And it's so, so sad. And he's just, he's a wicked, wicked villain. And he does ruin the parts of the books that he's in. He ruins those parts. And the next villain I want to talk about is from Bleak House, and that is Tulkinghorn, the really aggressive lawyer. And I think that I just feel so much for Lady Deadlock when I read this, right? I am on her side. I am on team Lady Deadlock without a doubt. And he has it in for her, and she never did anything to him. She never did anything to him, but he is very much, people have to be of respectable blood and can't have anything that will taint the family line. And he's awful. He's awful. He's so aggressive and just vindictive. And he does a bit ruin the parts of the story that he's in. So by the end of the book, I'm happy with the results. I'll just say that. And the next villain I want to talk about is from Oliver Twist, and that is Bill Sikes. Now, I do think maybe some people think Bill Sikes doesn't have enough depth, but he was such a memorable part of this story for me because he is such a loose cannon. And whenever he's in a scene, you're a little nervous, like, is Bill going to lose his temper? What is he going to do when he loses his temper? And you're always on edge. And so I think that is a well-written villain in that aspect. Like, you are paying attention in the scenes that he is in, and he's terrifying. But I do love that you get to see kind of this softer side of him with Nancy. You believe, and I think I believe in his own selfish way, that he genuinely does care about her. Obviously, he's not healthy in all the ways that he interacts with Nancy. But it just, to me, I don't know. I think he's a great villain because, like I said, whenever he's in a scene, I am paying attention and wondering, what is this guy going to do next? The next on the list is Count Dracula from the book Dracula by Bram Stoker. Dracula, to me, is definitely the most terrifying out of all of these because you have to sleep with both eyes open. if you're going to be around Count Dracula, you cannot rest. And he will turn you into a vampire if you are asleep and he is around. He's just utterly terrifying. And also the fact that he is inspired by, I've heard this could be an urban legend, but isn't he supposed to be inspired by the historical figure Vlad the Impaler? And I haven't even looked up specifics about Vlad the Impaler because I don't think I even want to know. But it's just terrifying. The fact that someone has the power with their body to turn someone into something subhuman is a really terrifying concept. And yes, he's scary. He's very scary. The next one, and this one is a weaselly bad guy, and that is Count Fosco in The Woman in White. Not Sir Percival Glyde, I say, but Count Fosco, because he tries to charm people and he tries to make it seem like he is nice and good, and he's not. He's awful. He's friends with Sir Percival Glyde, and he wants to just bring the utter destruction to the family that you know in this book. And yeah, so it makes it all the more awful that it's this cognitive dissonance in the scenes that he's in. Like, let's all act polite and affable and cheerful and like everything's okay. Let's make small talk while you're really just awful and dreadful and wicked. And so that contrast just really creeps me out. He's a bit in the Uriah Heep category. And if I ever had a moody cat, I would want to name it Fosco. And the next one is from Dombey and Son, and that is James Carker. He is another kind of Count Fosco, and also especially because you sort of trust him at the beginning of the book. I can't even remember now because it's been a good 5 years since I read this. I think I trusted him at the beginning, and then it's slowly details are revealed and you realize how extremely untrustworthy he is and how you should not be trusting him. And just, he's really, really just, there's a really intense climactic scene at the end of this. And my heart was racing as I read it. Kind of this confrontation between James Carker and someone else. And it's intense and it's written so pacey. It's Dickens at some of his best novel writing. And then I want to talk about Alec d'Urberville from Tess of the D'Urbervilles. Alec d'Urberville is particularly terrifying as a character because you can see so many Alec d'Urbervilles in the modern day, where he really justifies his behavior. In his head, he is not a villain. He has not done anything wrong, and it's only other people's faults. His terrible actions are only other people's faults. And so he has just really justified everything that he has done. And he doesn't even view Tess as 100% human. Like, she is just there. She is his possession. And it's, so just aggravating and insulting. He's a terrible character, and Hardy writes him really well because I hate him so much. The ninth villain I want to talk about is a really good one because she seems very realistic. And that is the character from the last Chronicle of Barset, Mrs. Proudie. She's in a couple of the Barsetshire books, but she is determined to make everyone's life miserable if they aren't up to her standards. And she heckles her husband constantly. She makes his life absolutely, positively, without a doubt, miserable. And I actually thought there's a song from Gilbert and Sullivan's The Mikado, I've Got a Little List. And the lyrics are, I've got a little list of people who wouldn't be missed. No, they never would be missed. I might have gotten that slightly wrong, but Mrs. Proudie I just kept thinking of that song as I was reading about Mrs. Proudie. So it's extra painful to read about her because she really is making the people in her life, she's making their lives miserable. And pretty much everyone would be better off without her around. So yes, she's awful, and she's just awful. She's so well written. Like, just applause for you, Anthony Trollope, for writing such a realistic, terrible woman as part of the Barsetshire Chronicles series. And then I want to talk about, lastly, Ebenezer Scrooge from A Christmas Carol. Now, what is particularly lovely about Ebenezer Scrooge is that you see he makes a true change. But you see at the beginning, he is just so unkind and self-involved, and he is selfish and just incredibly greedy. full of avarice, as the book says. And he's awful. He's awful. He's another one. He's just making every single person he interacts with, he's making their life worse. There is no one whose life he is making better. And he calls, at Christmas time when people can't pay the bills, harvest time for money lenders. And he's awful. He's awful. But I love that you get to see a true change in him. And I think there are some books out there that send the message that people can't truly change. And that's such a crippling kind of belief to have. Then you think, well, gee, all of the vices that I have, I know the certain aspects about myself personally I don't like. I can just go, well, sorry, there's nothing I can do about it. That's a terrible belief to have. And so I really appreciate in A Christmas Carol that it shows that people can really change in real life, not just in books. So I hope you enjoyed my very opinionated Victorian villains list. Comment down below with who you think are great villains, and maybe people that I should have included on this list that I didn't include. And I will be back with another video soon. I hope you are having such a great Victober, and I'll be back soon.